It used to be that if you were moving to New Zealand and you had pets, they didn't come with you. They were going to be rehomed. It was too expensive, too major. But nowadays, if you're moving to New Zealand and you've got pets, those babies are coming with you.
It is so sad right now. There are so many scams. We know of one U.S. active company that is continually taking deposits and not doing anything on the moves for people. And people are losing thousands and thousands of dollars and calling us.
If you're moving to New Zealand and you've got pets, you are going to love this week's episode. We're going to share with you 5 major mistakes that people make when they ship their pets from the other side of the world and bring them to New Zealand. NZAhead, coming to you from Taranaki, New Zealand. Actually, to the show, to the podcast. This is your second time sitting with us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I loved our first time, so I look forward to today.
For those people who don't know you, Brett, would you just like to say who you are and tell us a little bit about your company?
Yeah, my name's Brett. I'm in the United States and have the privilege of owning and running Starwood Pet Travel. We have the great job of reuniting families who are relocating overseas. And so we handle the pet side, which is, from what a lot of people tell us, is their most important part of the move, is getting their pet there safely, especially to a place like New Zealand with all the complex rules and biosecurity to get into the country. And so I love what we get to do. We only focus on pets. And so we love seeing those pictures at the end of the families back together.
I know. I love it when people post those. They are more important than their children, I think. I've really come to believe that.
I do. It's because I love pets and things, but I mean, I've always loved my children more than pets. Only sometimes. But when I see it on our community where they're actually posting them, and it's just like, oh my God, this is really, really important.
Yeah,
it really is.
It really is.
Yeah. I think it's because they don't speak. And so it's hard if your kids are traveling, you can call them when they're at a layover in London or wherever. With pets, I think it's that just fear of the unknown and the anxiousness. And so I think when the pet is back reunited, it's kind of like the first deep breath they've been able to have. It's like, oh, okay, everything did work out fine. So
yeah, Brett, like I just said, you have been on the show before and you told us all about Starwood Pet Travel and how you guys work. But today, what I wanted to talk to you about, because we were thinking about this and we thought it is such a massive, massive thing to bring your pets to New Zealand. And you're part of our community, and I can see you chatting with the members in there about bringing their pets over. And a lot of questions come in, like, what do I need to do? But a lot of questions also come in about what don't I need to do? And that's what I was interested in today, was just like the mistakes that people have to look out for when they're planning on bringing their pets to New Zealand. So I'm really thrilled that you're here to talk to us about the 5 major mistakes that people have to look out for when they're bringing their pets. And let's just clarify, pets. You've told me that people bring all sorts of animals and pets over to New Zealand. It's not just
Yeah, dogs and cats would be most. And New Zealand has rules of what other animals can't or can be imported in. Yeah. And so the beauty of New Zealand is they're very clear, at least on what's allowed in and what's not allowed in. And so most all of our customers would be in the dogs and cat area, so of pets.
So what's number one? What's the number one mistake that people make when they're bringing their pets to New Zealand?
This is our biggest one, and we hear it right in the beginning. It's not planning far enough in advance.
Right.
It's a lot of times it's the immigration side as the top of there, or the job and those kind of things. And then it gets to house. And it's just, I think people feel like they can buy their plane ticket, a couple months in advance and it's no big deal. Pets are such a different story. And so we have pets that are booked 9, 12 months out already. Mm-hmm. And it's not that time isn't the requirement, but it just allows that there's more space if a vet messes up something or something goes wrong. And because a lot of times the humans need to get to New Zealand at a set time for the new job or the closing of the house or something. And it's just painful when the pets have to be boarded in the States. And New Zealand doesn't change their laws for one person. No matter how powerful you are, the laws are the laws, and New Zealand's going to stay right to them. And so we always tell people, plan out further than you think. Minimum in the 4 to 5 month range. That's if all your stuff is perfect leading up. When it comes to the microchip, the rabies vaccination, all your documents leading in were perfect. If they're not, then we've just added more time to this. And so it is never too early. If you're out a year out and you just want to start the process, it also allows you to pay over a longer period of time. And so it kind of spaces it out more. But that's our top one, is further than you think you need to start the conversation.
So what would happen though? Say if I was moving to New Zealand and I had a job lined up and they said, oh yeah, you're going to be starting in 8 or 9 months. I thought, right, okay, I'm going to get my pet booked into Starwood Pet Travel. I'm going to get all that sorted. I'm going to get the paperwork done. Do you actually book the pet's flight? Because what would happen if in 8 or 9 months, I was delayed by 4 or 5 months? What would happen then?
Yeah, great question. That's one of the biggest misconceptions with pet travel is most pet travel flights are only allowed to be booked 10 to 30 days before the flight takes off.
Right.
And so we don't even have, airlines have what they call booking windows. And some airlines are only 10-day booking windows. And so you can only book 10 days before you want the pet to fly. Most are in the 30-day window, but it's everything before that. It's getting the blood test and the documents over and the import permit approved and all these vet visits that line up, where the flight booking is one of our easiest steps. And that does allow us, because it is so backloaded, that allows us to flex it. And the beauty of pet travel too is, from a flight perspective, we can cancel and rebook with no penalties from the airline. And so we can change up if now what we have to watch out for is our documents. So if our documents are set to expire, some documents only last 10 days. And it's a 2-day journey to get over there, and the vet visits before the flight. And so we kind of run short on days. And so we like to know all those things ahead of time as much as possible. And then when we book the flight, that's usually kind of when we're like, okay, we're now in the go zone. Everything should be now running pretty quickly before the pet takes off.
How many flights a week leave the US to come to New Zealand? Is it just one airline, or is it any airline?
Yeah, we use predominantly Air New Zealand, just because direct flights. We like direct flights. Now, Air New Zealand has some breed restrictions. And so if you have a breed that's restricted on Air New Zealand, then we got to get creative and go a different airline. And so I know Qantas now has a flight as of this recording. Everything can change. Qantas now has a flight from JFK in New York City into Auckland, and then goes on to Australia after that. So we're able to get on that for some breeds that Air New Zealand won't allow, that Qantas does allow. Or sometimes we're going to go through the desert on Qatar, who just built the best premier pet facility in the world. Unbelievable transit facility at Doha Airport. And so a lot of pets now are going that direction if they're starting on the East Coast of the United States. It would make no sense on the West Coast to go all the way that way. But Air New Zealand is still hands down our top on that. So flights, Air New Zealand's flying out of LA and San Francisco, I think, only right now. And so we have a couple flights a week, because we don't like to arrive on the weekend because of quarantine in New Zealand, and they have to get checked in by the government vet. And so there's a lot of other steps. And so because it's a 2-day flight leaving here with all the time changes, and we don't like to arrive on the weekend, it really leaves us with 2 days that we can leave from the United States to be able to hit a weekday over there. So it gets a little tight, but that's what our operations team does the best.
I I'm smiling because honestly, I mean,
you don't think all this goes into it, do you? You just think, put them in a box and away they go on the wing.
I just can't believe it. I just can't believe it, and I get it. I mean, I know I don't get it, but it's just. I just have this image of these pets just lined up going, oh, what flight are you going on then? I'm going on Air New Zealand because I'm a poodle, aren't I? I'm allowed on the Air New Zealand flight, you know. It's just...
I'm a staffy. I'm not allowed on that one.
Yeah, it is. It is so interesting. All the countries and random rules we just don't think about. Like countries that if you dock the pet's ears like a Doberman or its tail, not allowed to come into that country. Wow. Cannot be imported. Other countries that have really strict rules on terriers. And so there's some strong breeds that are terriers, but there's also little West Highland terriers that are they've embargoed all terriers.
Yeah.
And so they say no terriers can arrive. So there's so many random things, which actually is our second biggest mistake, is not bringing in a reputable company that can help you in the process.
Yeah.
We cannot, it is so sad right now. There are so many scams. We know of one US active company that is continually taking deposits and not doing anything on the moves for people. And people are losing thousands and thousands of dollars and calling us. And we weren't scammed, and so we can't do anything. And we just hate seeing this stuff. And so we always tell people, like, research like crazy the company you're going to trust, because like I said, there's so many months of planning. You can't get to that day you think your pet's flying and find out your company did nothing.
Yeah.
And now you're starting all over. And it's happened in the last couple months. For New Zealand and Australia with a company in the United States. And so like reputable companies should do things that protect you as the consumer.
Yeah.
So for my company, we spend hundreds of thousands a year in credit card fees because we only accept credit cards.
Yeah.
It would be much cheaper for us to do wire transfers and all these other things that don't have fees attached, but the customer is not protected.
Yeah.
Because if something goes wrong, you can always get your money back from your credit card company. But you can't on a wire. And so something as little as that, like, it should be a red flag. And the beauty of our internet society now is reviews are everywhere. So read reviews. Starwood, we have over 4,000 5-star reviews. And those kind of things are so important to us because it tells the story of so many other people. And we're getting calls all the time. Oh, I made my deposit with this company. And we're like, didn't you see their last 30 reviews were people that were scammed by them? Yeah. And so finding that company you trust and then letting them review your documents and then establish that timeline is kind of that best first step. And you can't start that early enough. And you need to, when you make that commitment and pay that deposit, it's kind of like a relationship where you got to feel good with the team you're hiring on, because you're going to work really closely with them for 5-6 months. And you want to make sure it's the team you want and it's the team you trust. Because if not, it is a lot of stress already at a very stressful time.
Yes.
You guys know, your community knows.
Yeah.
Pets are just one piece of immigration, housing, jobs, education, all this kind of stuff that goes into relocation. And if you pick the company you don't trust, it is so stressful. And it's not cheap to move your pet. So you feel like you're paying a lot of money and you're not getting the service level that you expect for that money. And so that one's a huge one that we wish more people knew about, that mistakes we see people make.
Yeah. And we will come back to the I just want to come back to the cost, because I just want to get I know it's a difficult thing because each is an individual case. But before we move on to that, I think it's really important to say, and I did say this in the other podcast, but I just really feel the need to say this, is when we were looking for our community for pet travel companies, we reached out to a few people, and the reason we chose you is because we talked. Do you remember we had that Zoom call and we were just like, we just to introduce ourselves, and we were talking about our podcast, and you were like, what do you want to know? I'll tell you anything you want to know now. And we were like, oh, what, don't you need to research? Don't you need to know our questions? You no, and you were just so upfront and so transparent. And that's what we love about you. And I think that's important for people to know is there's no, I feel like there's no hidden, you're very, very upfront and very honest. And I appreciate that. And our community appreciates that too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't like the curtain. Go ahead, Brian.
No, sorry. I just that type of honesty like you're talking about now, and just you know, when you meet people, it's just that you say, oh, they're savvy. You just know that they're not pulling the wool over your eyes, and it's lovely to see.
Yeah, I think in our industry in the past, there was always this kind of curtain behind how travel worked for pets. You know, they used to say, no news is good news. That doesn't work with my dogs. Like, no news is not good news. I need updates. Like, that's not going to be. And so I've always used my dogs as this litmus of how we build this company. And for me, it's so important. Like, I just did an around the world trip where I visited all of our top locations in Europe, and I was in Australia and New Zealand, double checking our facilities, double checking the teams on the ground, making sure we're meeting with the airlines, making sure they're handling the pets correctly, because it is a massive team that come together to move a pet. And we don't want people to not know what that process is like. We're going to share every step of that process. We've invested so much money in technology recently because I feel like I can order a pizza from my phone and I can watch the driver come all the way to my house and make all the turns and everything. And then pets going to New Zealand, we're saying there's multiple days you're just not going to hear anything.
Yeah.
And like, that's not okay. And so we came out with the first tracking where it's kind of more like a FedEx tracker where it's like at a spot, you're getting an update, and the next spot, you're getting an update. And so where we want people to know, like, yes, pet's loaded on the plane. Yes, flight took off. Yes, pet landed. We're actually working right now with our quarantines in New Zealand to participate in that and scan our trackers. And so when the pets arrive at their facility, the customer knows, okay, my dog's now at quarantine. Great. Okay, I feel good on that. And they get a picture and an update. And those kind of things, I feel like that's like the bottom of what should happen, not the top of what should happen.
Yes.
And so, yeah, we try really hard to be transparent, even when it comes to pricing for us. So many people, we tell people all the time, if you get a price from us and you get other prices, which we always encourage people, you should get more than one price. If there are thousands different, somebody's hiding things from you. There's not that much variability in pricing. And we see it all the time. We just heard a story when I was in New Zealand a couple weeks ago that somebody went to pick up their pet at quarantine. Everything was done, exciting day. They get there and find out
you are here because you love New Zealand.
You might be moving to New Zealand,
living in New Zealand, or you might just spend your days dreaming of visiting this gorgeous country. Because we love New Zealand as much as you do, we have compiled a short and very unique 5-day video series showcasing life in New Zealand, what it's really like. These videos are real, they are exclusive, and best of all, they're absolutely free. So if you would like to view New Zealand from the inside out and find out what life is really like down here, sign up now, and every day for 5 days we will send you a personal 3-minute video showcasing some brilliant aspect of life in New Zealand. You are gonna love it. Go to www.itsadrama.com/ILoveNZ. We can't wait to share those videos with you. Okay, let's get back on with the show.
Everything was done, exciting day. They get there and find out the company they hired didn't pay for quarantine. Never told them that they had an over $1,000 US dollar bill coming to them, that they had no clue. And like those kind of things, I don't think is the right way to do things. Like you need to know going in. And if you want to cut costs and you want to see how you can, our team works with you and say, okay, you can do quarantine on your own and you can save that for the very end. But we're going to let you know what quarantine is going to cost, so you at least know what you're getting into, because you got to know the full picture here on it. So,
so if I didn't want to do anything myself, I wanted you to do everything, and I'm moving a Labrador. Are Labradors allowed on their New Zealand flights? Yeah. Okay. Yep. Come on in. So I'm moving my Labrador.
Check your ears.
Yeah, moving my Labrador from the States to New Zealand. All in, everything. You're going to do everything for me. How much would it cost me?
Yeah. So, the thing when it comes to pricing and pets, what we always tell people to remember is pricing on pets, the biggest cost is the airfare. That's the biggest chunk of your price. Airfare is set off the size of the pet's crate.
Right.
And so a cat is going to cost a lot less than a Labrador. In the thousands difference between a small Chihuahua to a Newfoundland big dog. And so it really depends on that size. It also depends on if you're going to need other flights. And so we have people that start in Miami and they're going to need a flight all the way to LA on that. There's a lot of breeds in the United States that are banned that can't fly. So now we're talking a drive across the United States, which is thousands of dollars to drive your pet across the United States. And then if they're arriving in Auckland and we got to get them down to the South Island, now we have another, if we're going to drive it and ferry it down or if we're going to take a flight down. So there are a lot of variabilities. I would say, I always like to give ranges just because things change. I think on a Labrador, you're probably looking at the, if things are all the stars align and no needing extra transport and all that, you're probably in the $6,000 range.
6,000.
And, could be going up to $9,000, $10,000 range, depending on if additional flights in the United States or New Zealand, additional boardings have to take place. All those pieces can add. When you do multiple pets, we always like to tell people it's not the same price doubled.
Right.
Because on the airfare, it is double. But if you're paying for a driver to bring the pet to the airport, usually you can save on that second or third pet. Sometimes, boarding will give a second pet discount. So sometimes like we have where people have two pets and they book with us and one drops off and they think the price is going to get cut in half and they're surprised that it doesn't. Well, that driver still has to go to the airport for the one pet that wasn't going to go, and the other one doesn't change that. So there's some prices that don't change, but it's not an exact doubling for a second pet and it's not exact half off if one drops off.
Yeah. And you know what? When I was just thinking then, because I always like to add a few thousand on because that maybe there's going to be some extras or whatever. But you just, even if you thought, okay, me and you, Brian, if you had a really precious piece of furniture that you wanted to bring over or antique or something, and you pay that extra, don't you, to get it all wrapped and shipped, and it's no different than that. I mean, these people, again, we watch these people bring in it's their family, that these pets are part of their family. And so, to be honest, I don't think that's a massive amount of, it's a lot, but it's not like, there's absolutely no way we're moving to New Zealand because I'm not paying, 10 grand to bring the pet. But yeah, I actually don't.
Yeah, and I think that's changed too. And I think it's changed with how people see their pets. I think 10 years ago, we saw a lot more people would rehome their pets here in the States. I can't afford it. I'm just going to find a new home for my pet. And I'm still moving to New Zealand, but my pet's just not making it. We don't hear those conversations anymore. That's not an option. Right. People are bringing their pet. So now the question is, if money is tight, how do we fund this? And so we've tried to do everything we can with people. We do a 0 interest payment plan during the whole planning time. I think we're the only company that offers a buy now, pay later with a partnership with a firm. So if your final payment's coming up and you can't afford that, then you can go put that on an extended payment plan. And we pay with credit cards, which adds another month before your credit card payment's due. So we've tried to help people through that, which, the cost is a struggle compared to wiring a whole lump sum up front out of your bank account, which, is tough. But so, and there's a lot of times, we ask a question right up front. What's your most important thing in this? And is it pet safety? Is it price? Or is it customer experience? Because if it's customer experience, then we're going to talk to you about a complete full service where we can do everything, all your vet work for you. So you don't have to worry about anything. If price, then we're going to start talking about things you can do that'll help cut some price down, but it's going to put a lot more work on you, but we'll still guide you through the process. Because for us, we still have 100% success rate of every dog we've ever sent to New Zealand has been accepted and paperwork has been in the right order and the pets arrive, we're not going to let anybody change that for us. So even if you're price conscious, we're still going to work with you to show you, here's what you can do on your own. Your local vet might be cheaper than this vet over here. And so do these things, and that's going to help save you some money over there.
While we're talking about vets, that was actually point number 3. That was mistake number 3, wasn't it? That you said,
yes.
Yeah, not following the specific step-by-step instructions from the vet. Can you just talk more about that?
Yeah, to get to New Zealand, everything is timed out. So you do this thing first and you wait this many days. So even down to like the microchip that your pets have in them. If your pet had their rabies vaccination was done, but they didn't have a microchip, and later they had their microchip implanted, then that rabies before doesn't mean anything. Nothing happens until that microchip, because that microchip is the only way that document has that number on it. And the government vet in New Zealand can scan that microchip and see that this paperwork matches this pet. And so there are so many of these steps that you got to do more than 60 days, but less than 120 days, and more than this and less than this. And so when people get to their vets, and a lot of times vets feel like they know the process. Vets don't export many pets to New Zealand. But a customer loves their vet. They know their vet. They're going to listen to their vet. And the vet sometimes can give really bad information. And so what we've tried to do at Starwood is I ended up hiring 3 full-time vet techs that their entire job is just working with our customers' vets to make sure the vet fully understands, because there's a blood test. And the blood test has to go to one lab in the United States.
One lab?
Well, there's many labs that do that blood test. Many labs that do that. So the vet says, well, I already have an account with this lab, and they do that blood test. I'm going to send it there. Government in New Zealand says, that's not the one we approve.
Right.
So even though it's the same test, it didn't come from the approved lab in the United States. So now we're back at square one. So following our team and the experts, where we work with your vet and making sure all these things are because some of them, like, we have like a day wiggle room when it gets down to coming into the last week of the move, like for our final health certificate. We got to get that endorsed by the USDA, New Zealand. We have to do a crate seal. We have to do all these steps. So it is like a choreographed dance.
Yeah.
And so I think that's our biggest mistake, is when people feel like the timeline isn't important or their vet is smarter than our team. Because this is all we do at Starwood. We don't move anything else. We can't help you with your visa. We can't do any of that kind of stuff. This is all we do. And so our team is experts. And so that's why we work really close with your vet to try to make sure that this timeline is following. So
when you say that you had the wiggle room, so say it didn't work out, you missed that flight. So how long would you then have to keep the pet? That's obviously going to be an extra cost then, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a great question. We just had a couple weeks ago where Air New Zealand, there was a mechanical issue. Plane doesn't take off. Well, there's not 50 of those flights a day leaving LA. And so if one doesn't take off, then we're rebooking, hoping to get on the next day's flight. The next day might be full. Yeah. And so they're not going to remove things for us. So, it gets really tight where our team is like jumping on the phone late at night, early in the morning, trying to say, okay, we have 2 days left on this document. So we need to get the pet out. We have 2 days before we have to redo. And so we did this thing because it's a concern. And if I was transporting the pets, my own pet, I would be worried about this, because I don't want to get to the last week and find out I have a lot of extra cost coming to me. And when it's an airline thing, Starwood, we can't control that. So we ended up doing what we call a pet protection plan, which we highly recommend for people, where it's kind of the insurance where we eat the cost on that stuff. So you kind of ensure yourself that if there is these delays or whatever, and documents have to be reworked and boarding is in that's not coming to me. It's coming to Starwood, and Starwood's gonna cover that for us. But it is a lot of quick movements when a plane gets canceled, and we're trying to get space back and all that, and making sure the pets. And that's a great thing in our cities. We have great boarding facilities, so we never worry about the pet not being in a good spot. Yeah. They're having a great time. Usually it's the pet parent that's more anxious than anything. And then we send them pictures of the dog in Los Angeles in the sun at an outdoor playground at the kennel. And they're like, he looks so happy. We're like, he is happy. Like, it's an extra day in Los Angeles. It's great. Not a bad thing to have to do. So
I think like you say as well, it is the pet parent, isn't it? We do a lot of house sitting, completely different subject. We do a lot of house sitting, and the parent, when they leave the pet, they're like, oh, make sure this, make sure that he watches me go, make sure that and then they drive away. Yeah. That just is so happy. Like,
once its tail run around the garden, they've gone.
Yeah.
I know that's really tough to remember as a pet parent, but yeah, I think if they're well loved and cared for, like you say, the facility is lovely, then why wouldn't they be happy? Of course, it's us that worry, isn't it? As pet owners, it's us that worry. Brett, mistake number 4 was about the crate, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Tell us about the crate.
Yeah, so that was a big one. It's especially if pets have traveled before. And this happens a lot for us in London, where a pet flew from London to the United States in a crate. Sometimes that crate is not approved for that pet to fly back to London. Even though it left London in that crate, it's not an approved crate to arrive into London. And so there are very strict rules for the animal safety. And so the rules are good rules. They're not bad rules. Mm-hmm. They're really good rules for the pet safety, because ultimately the crate is what's protecting them during travel. We don't want crates to open, doors to open, and pets get loose. And so we want to ensure that the pet is safe and travel. And so that's why these rules are there. But sadly, there's a lot of things, especially in the United States with Amazon, which we buy all of our stuff on Amazon. And there is countless crates that say airline approved, and they're not airline approved. Right. And so customers will send us a picture of the crate, and it looks right to us in a photo. But the day our driver gets there, the driver's like, no, this isn't an approved crate. The plastic is too thin. The door's not right. The bolts on the side are plastic bolts and not metal bolts. Like, there's so many different rules, even down to the spacing of the holes on the side for airflow. And so we really try to convince people, like, get a new crate through us that we can ensure is the right crate. And then also comes down to the sizing of the crate, because you don't want to put a dog in too small of a crate. But you also don't want to put, a Chihuahua in a massive crate too. That's not safe for them either. And so, we send out a huge poster that has every crate size possible, where you just put your dog against it. And then we see what line is the one that we can fully see. And okay, that's the right crate. On it. And it's such an important thing, because airlines do have the ability to reject the day of the flight, say, no, that's not a proper crate, or that's not the right size for the crate. And then we're scrambling, running in LA to get more crates or try to find something that fits and this and that. And it's just a lot of extra stress that we try to alleviate in the beginning, especially when we have multiple month process here. We can kind of check that off along the way. That goes back to that time thing, doesn't it? Just allowing enough time. God, Brett, your job is just sounding more and more. I'm literally sitting here getting anxious thinking about it. So.
I used to have a company that sold dog crates. They're great crates. They're made in America, so made of wire mesh and stuff, But so it's completely different than that, is it? Or is it something?
Yeah, the wire meshes are not allowed. Right. Those crates are not allowed. So most of the crates in the United States are the kind of hard shell plastic, 2 pieces that kind of come together, top and bottom, and attach. We'll have to go to custom wood crates if it is a larger breed. or a stronger breed. Some breeds that are stronger breeds require a different crate that's more reinforced on that, different latches, different doors. Ultimately, it's, we never want a pet to be able to get out, first off. We never want that to happen. So the crate is the line of defense to keep the pet in. And then secondly, we want the pet protected. And if something ever happened, something fell on the crate, we want it to be able to protect the pet inside the crate. And that's not common. That doesn't happen. Where the pets go is completely separated from the luggage. And so it's not like turbulence hit and the pet's getting hit with luggage. That's not how it works at all in the pet cabin. But if something did happen, we want it to be a thick, and that's one piece that we always try to tell people is the pet safety is our top concern. The customer experience is our second top concern, but the pet safety is first. And the number one way a pet gets injured in travel is the pet not being comfortable in the crate. Right. It's not the airline, it's not the driver, it's not the handler, not the quarantine facility. It is taking a pet that is scared to death of a crate and putting them in the day a stranger is picking up and putting on an airplane. Pets their toenails, if they're digging at the thing, there's so many things pets can injure themselves just based off that being anxious. And so we have a whole process, 3-step process. It takes 3 weeks to do with dogs. You throw the ball in the crate, let them get it and come out. Do that for a week. Second week, put the food in the crate. Don't shut the door. Just feed them in the crate. And third week, feed them, shut the door. And it gets them used to that. Especially dogs are more kind of cave mentality anyways, where they feel really comfortable in a tight area. And so once they're comfortable with that tight area, they do so good in travel. They do so well in travel. And so, we want them to get them used to that. So the day of, when you're already anxious, the furniture is all gone, the house is empty, you're stressed, all this anxiety, which our pets totally feel, all this anxiety, that now a stranger is sticking them in a crate and now they're anxious as anything. Because you can't give them sedatives, you can't drug them, you can't do any of those things, because we want the pet to be safe at altitude, because planes are pressurized at altitude. We want them to be safe, and we don't know on the ground if the sedative you gave them is going to have an effect at altitude for them. And so airlines look for that very closely. They want to see that the pet is not sedated at all. And so getting them comfortable with their crate is the biggest piece.
Yeah, that's good crate training then. That's because it's so, you would think, oh yes, off they go. We've never been in a crate, it'd be fine. But no.
Little bit of in the water, I think, would do that. That would settle them down a little bit.
We actually, that's funny you say that, because no, we don't do that. But we actually on the water, made me think, on the water, we actually freeze their water dishes.
Yeah.
Because pets are really good at sloshing their water and knocking it all out. And it's a long flight from the US to New Zealand. And we don't want them without water. And so we actually freeze their entire water dish so it slowly thaws.
Good idea.
During their flight, so they always have water for their flight.
That's fantastic.
You can just imagine the first lick and they're stuck there. Like, how are we going to get up?
Do you know, I'm always watching the pet channel within our community. I love watching what you guys are talking about, because it's an interesting topic. And one of the biggest thing that keeps coming up is, how can I make the crate more comfortable? And people say, can they bring their own blanket for the dog? Can they bring their dog toys? And I remember reading, can I actually fly with my dog in the crate? They're not allowed to do that, are they, Brett?
Not allowed to do that. We have had people request like horse stalls, that because airlines require for horse transport, they call it a groom. It's a person that actually travels with the horse down there. And we've had customers ask if their dogs can go in a horse stall so they can be the groom and travel. And we're like, no, that's not how it works. And, we always tell people, you don't want to add too much inside a crate. Airlines have the ability of taking anything out they don't feel is safe. And you never know what airline employee you get on the day you get them. We even say that with air tags. People love to put like air tags on the crate. Airlines can take them off if they want. And so we always tell people, like, do not have anything in the crate or on the crate that's valuable to you.
Yeah.
If you have a prized collar or something you love, because collars, the pets can't wear them in the crate, so they're just attached to the outside. If you have a lead you love. But we always tell people too, with New Zealand, is quarantine is so strict from biosecurity that a lot of time what you putting in the crate has to be incinerated, because it could have bugs and could have something in there that New Zealand won't, run that risk. And so even though it's your favorite item or what, New Zealand government isn't too worried about your favorite item when it comes to biosecurity.
Yeah.
And so, I know in Australia, every crate is pressure washed. Everything is removed from inside, incinerated. The entire crate is pressure washed just to ensure that there's no biosecurity risk that could come in with the pet. So we tell them, we put a little mats in there. That's usually the best thing. They'll be comfortable. Yeah. Most pets sleep the entire flight anyways. And so it's pretty easy for them. Most of our dogs are fine being lazy. My two out here, they're perfectly fine sleeping for most of the day. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Brett, before we jump on to the last mistake that people make, I just want to ask you this, because this is our dog. Okay, so we've got a Mastiff cross Labrador. She's the most lovely dog. She's so placid and happy. But if she feels that someone, like a part of her family, is in danger, she will snap. So you have to be really careful with her. What would you do if someone was saying, okay, I'm going to bring my dog over, and the dog is absolutely fine and everything's been passed, and then they get to the airport on the runway, say, I don't know how that works, but they're getting into the crate, and they go to bite someone, or they, like attack the person that's putting them in. What would you do? Would they still be allowed in, or would it be like, no? What would happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, aggressive dogs can definitely be transported very safely. And most dogs are not purely aggressive, just 100% of their nature. Usually if they feel threatened, they feel their family members are threatened or something on that side. And so there's some precautions that can be taken. Now, the nice thing in travel is once the pet is tendered at the airport, they're not opening that door. And so even if the dog barks inside the crate or growls or whatever, nobody's putting their hand in that crate or anything. And so it's okay if the dog is getting aggressive inside. Now, when it comes to our pet handlers, like our drivers, we have very strict training on all of our drivers that they have to be able to know how to handle any breed. Now, it's usually our cats that are more of our issues than our mastiffs. But we, when we'll do a training with our drivers, we go to the shelter and we ask for their most aggressive dog. And that's the dog we train off of. And we show them how you could take the most aggressive dog with proper handling. That dog will follow your lead and will do what you want it to do, and will get in the crate. And ways of walking the dog, you don't stop and try to push the dog, you walk them back around another circle. And we're going to walk them right in, and they're going to go in. It might take a couple circles around. Where cats, we always ask customers to help us, because usually the cat's more comfortable with the pet parent. We always ask cat owners to help us by getting the cat in the crate themselves if they're able to, just because it is stressful. We have a move coming up. It's a lady moving to France, and she has 40 cats.
40 cats?
And 40. And so...
crates? Because it can't go in the same...
Nope, 40 crates. And so lots of cats. So
how many crates can fit on a plane?
Yeah, so it all depends on the aircraft that's being flown. The nice thing going to New Zealand, everything is a wide body. So it's a 777 Boeing, a 787, or an A350. And so those we can put a lot of pets on board. There could be 20 pets on board a flight. This one, we have to actually do 2 different flights just due to the count. And it also comes down to the size. So if we have your dog that's part Mastiff, going to take up a little bit more space than, a couple cats. So it depends on how much size is being taken up.
Yeah. How do they go to the bathroom when they're in the crate? What happens if they want? Well, obviously they need to go to the bathroom, or do they?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, great question. So we always tell people, like, pets can go a day without eating. I know we love to feed our pets. That's why most of our pets are very large in size, because we love to feed them. And so we always tell people, like, right before travel, we kind of cut off food. So the night before, feed them normal, but the next day, no food, because we don't want them to, go to the bathroom in the crate and then sit in it, especially for our little dogs. That actually can make them really cold. And if temperature is an issue on our little dogs, we don't want them to be cold during transport. So we give water during the flight, but we don't want to give too much water before the flight. So they have water there. And we've seen it, every pet is so different. We've seen pets on an hour flight that just go everywhere in their crate, just mess it up like crazy. We get, coming into New Zealand, nothing, perfectly fine. Didn't go at all, didn't pee, didn't poo at all, held it the whole time. And so every pet is different, but we just say we hold food. And especially if you have a larger dog, it's really important to hold food, because the whole stomach turning issue in big dogs, that's really bad. And that's one of the big fears of large dogs with travel. And if they have a full stomach, more apt to happen. And so we really want to cautious if they haven't had the surgery to protect that from happening.
Right.
So that leads us into our final mistake. Actually, when you said about surgery, yes, it rang a little bell for me. Tell us about the final mistake that people make when they're shipping their pets to New Zealand.
Yeah, the final one is having the really heart-to-heart with the vet to make sure your pet is ready to travel. Travel is stressful on humans. Just sit at an airport. That's why airport lounges are so popular now, because it kind of takes a little bit of the stress out. But seeing people running and getting to the gate late and like security, like travel is stressful, and it is stressful for pets. There's no way around it. It's a new experience for them. It's stressful. There's loud noises as they're getting loaded onto the aircraft. And so there's no way to avoid that there is stress related to travel. And so we always tell people, your vet knows your pet. Our seat at Starwood is we're kind of the travel agent. So we're planning everything. We're getting all that ready, but we're not flying the plane, and we're not your vet that knows your pet's health. And so there's certain things for us. If your pet is elderly, and elderly is different for every breed. So a Mastiff elderly might be at 7 or 8 years old, where a little Chihuahua might be 13, 14 years old. So if they're elderly, if they're what we call snub nose, so the flat nose breeds, our little French bulldogs, our pugs, those, or if there's a pre-existing condition, those 3 things, we require another vet visit to have this conversation with your vet about, is this a wise thing to do with our pet? Travel is safe, but travel is stressful. Yeah. And we never want stress to go against like a heart condition or something like that. Now, we have had pets. We had one into New Zealand, went down south, diabetic dog that needed insulin like every 12 hours, but because of the travel, couldn't have insulin for an entire day. Dog did amazing. No issues at all. Where other pets, it's harder. And so your vet is your key on that side to make sure that they are the ones having that conversation with you, and you kind of know, okay, because we're keeping our pets alive a lot longer now. There's a lot more medical intervention nowadays. And so we're seeing a lot more elderly pets that have medication, and airlines can't administer medication during the flight. And there's times before the flight that they have to be there. There's times after, before they arrive at quarantine. And so there's a decent amount of time that passes that medication can't be given. Also, people don't realize our time zone differences. that if your pet is used to getting their pill at 8 a.m., that's not 8 a.m. when they land in Auckland.
Yeah.
And so it's a very different. So your vet is really important. So we have a whole questionnaire that we kind of give you, so you are informed in what you should ask with your vet, and your vet can help you understand those pieces. So that's kind of our last one, to make sure everybody knows how your pet's going to do, how we avoid anything that could possibly happen, and at least have those conversations with the vet. So
yeah.
So just one last thing. Is there someone in the pet cabin with looking out for the pets?
Great question. No. So there is nobody in the pet area of the aircraft.
Right.
And so people get confused on that pet area. So an airplane is basically just a big circle.
Yep.
Outside of an A380, every other plane halfway in the circle is a floor, and passengers are up top, cargo, pets, all that are down below. The plane is pressurized and climatized the same.
Yeah.
So what air we breathe, the same air the pets breathe. The only difference is they don't get in-flight service. So there's nobody serving them a meal, offering them a warm towel. There are private options, mostly between the States and Europe, because of flight time, that, pets are cared for during the flight on that. But into New Zealand, that's not an option on our commercial carriers. But like I said, the lights are dim down there. The captain knows when pets are on board. The captain is briefed on exactly how many dogs, cats, animals are on board. So the captain knows, and the captain monitors the temperature of the entire flight. That's a part of their whole checklist, is if there's any live animals down in cargo, they monitor that. They're able to make sure that everything is good. And like I said, because it's dim, most of the time they're out. They sleep. Airlines have put kind of cameras down there just to watch how pets interact with each other. They're smart enough. They move cats to a different area away from dogs, because cats get stressed out by being near dogs. And so they're smart on how they load to ensure pets. Every time I'm aboard the airlines, the people on the ground love pets. They love when they're putting a pet on, and they take such good care. And so everybody, most any normal person loves animals. And so they're going to do, what they can to ensure that the pet is safe on that, because nobody wants to see anything happen to a dog or a cat.
Yeah.
Well, Brett, I just feel as if, to be honest, I could just keep talking about this for ages, because I've got loads of subject, it is. It's a really interesting subject, but I really feel as if I know more now about, because I know we chatted before, but now it's fantastic to hear all about the things to look out for, the mistakes not to make. So I just feel as if you've just filled in all those extra little bits for me. I'm dying to know, though, what this, that, can I just say before we go, I know the show's running over, but I've got to ask this. You just said before, you said, there's this facility in, was it Qatar that you said?
In Doha, yeah.
Okay. Well, why is that the top notch? What's happening over there? What's they got?
Yeah, it's brand new, just opened a couple weeks ago. And the Middle East airlines are, some of the best airlines in the world. Qatar, I think, always rates at the top or whatever. Their airports are phenomenal. Their lounges are phenomenal. And they just took that same thing, bringing it into pets and talking about incredible areas for horses with padded floors, so they're not walking on hard surfaces, to dog and cat areas with a rooftop, outside shaded, air conditioned play area for dogs. Just talking about just top of the line. They're not having a bad day when they transit through, Doha on their way to Auckland or wherever else they're flying. And so sometimes, direct flights are great. And if we can do a direct flight, that's great. But sometimes a stop halfway is actually really good for the pet too, because it also puts new eyes on the pet to make sure that they weren't stressed and during travel or anything happened, that they are healthy. And so we actually like the layovers at time, because the teams on the ground make sure the pet is healthy.
Yeah.
And so before we're going on the next flight, we know we're good on that side. But yeah, top of the line facility.
If I was
yeah.
at Labrador, I'd be like, you know what, Mum, I'll go, but I want to stop over in
Yeah, go and find the Middle East.
And wine in my water.
Yeah, frozen.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm my golden retrievers. I think they would probably be happier in New Zealand on beautiful hikes and swimming, and so than here in Florida.
Yeah.
One last question, Brett. Most expensive pet you've ever shipped, and where was it to and from?
We used to do more for Hollywood. And so we did a Kodiak grizzly bear from Los Angeles to Cape Town, South Africa for a movie where the bear was in the movie, I think, for like 30 seconds or something. And I know our just air freight alone was over $70,000 just for the air freight. And so that's not including what the bear cost the movie and the handler and all that. Just so that was our top. The 40 cats, that's our highest number of pet move. And so that broke our last record of that. But yeah, this Kodiak grizzly was our most expensive.
When she rang you up, the lady or the man, and said, "Oh, hiya, I just want to get a price. I've got 40 cats here." Were you not tempted to just go, what's wrong with 40 cats?
Yeah. It actually, that process took over a year for her to get all of her travel down and everything. And so, she works at a great shelter, and I think all of them are rescues. And so they've been all adopted into her family, and she's actually bought a farm in France because of her cats. And so they're going to be living, what a great life. Talking about drinking wine, good wine. So they're going to be happy.
Well, Brett, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. And I'm going to put your extra, the other podcast that you did, Brian will put that
I'll
at
link
the
that
end.
at the end. Yes.
But I just want to say, we think you're fabulous. We love what you're doing for people, helping them move their pets to New Zealand. Just want to say a huge thank you to Starwood Pet Travel and to you, because you're always so open and so willing to just come and chat to us about this thing. So thank you so much, Brett. And we will speak to you soon. Yeah. Maybe we'll get together with a woman with 40 cats.
Yeah, I think next time we're in New Zealand, we've got to meet up for
Yes, absolutely.
A bit of frozen.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah. Well, thank you guys too for helping people in this complex process of getting their lives moved from another country into New Zealand. So you guys do a phenomenal work, and we love partnering with you and your community and helping on the pet side. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Brett. We'll speak to you again soon.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Have a great day. Bye.
Cheers now.
I really hope you enjoyed that show as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you're moving to New Zealand and you are interested in joining the Slack group, the private community group that we raved about and talked about on today's show, then you need to head over and get our free 5-day video guide. This is a video guide that sends you a video every day for 5 days, sharing some aspect of what life in New Zealand is like. It's absolutely free. And then when you get to the 5th day, you will be given the option of whether or not you want to join the private community, the one that we talked about. It's a fabulous, fabulous resource. I don't need to say anything more because you've already heard all about it. Go over, take the free 5-day video guide, get to day 5, and then you can decide whether or not you'd like to be a member and join our private community along with me and Brian and all those other fabulous people that are walking along the same path as you and making the move to New Zealand. So head on over to www.nzahead.com/free. Head on over to www.nzahead.com/free and get your free 5-day video guide. Get to day 5 and then you decide if you want to come and join us in our private membership group. I hope to see you on the other side. Moving to New Zealand is hard enough, but what about if you've got a pet to bring with you? What are the quarantine facilities like? Where will your pet be? How will it be not being with your pet? All of these questions are a massive part of you moving to the other side of the world.
very happy to see the government vet coming in, doing the final checkup on the pet before the family came and was able to be there for the happy reunion. The kids crying and the dog running out and just the joy.
In this week's episode, you're going to meet Brett. Brett is from Petwood Star Travel. He's a lovely, lovely guy, and he shares with you everything there is to know about bringing your pet to New Zealand.